Well, good evening. Thank you for Zooming with us for today's Mondays with MoCo. I am Dennis Melby with the Republican Party. Let's get started now, and as more folks come and join us, we'll let them in. Until we can meet in person, I'm glad you've been able to Zoom with us via technology. You don't have to wear a mask. You don't have to social distance. We can just have a good conversation with some great people, and we can enjoy our wonderful presentation. With me are committee members Jamie Greedon and Paul Agel. Every month we'll explore an important topic facing our community. Today's has been and is of great impact: schools, public schools, charter schools, and the growing disgruntlement of our citizens on the topic. We have three great speakers and time for questions at the end. If you're familiar with Zoom, there's a chat question button at the bottom of the screen. Just tap it and type in your question, and we'll ask it of our speakers after their presentations if we have the time. I've asked one of the speakers, Laurie Halverson, to introduce our first person. Laurie is dynamic, she's energetic, a great community activist, and a great Republican. Laurie, could you introduce our first speaker?
Yes, thank you, Dennis. We want to welcome Mackenzie Allen, who is the Executive Director of the Maryland Alliance of Public Charter Schools. As many of us know, parents across the state have little choice when it comes to their child's education. They can go to their neighborhood school, or they can apply to a magnet school, which is highly competitive, or there's a private school option, which not everyone can afford. There are no charter schools in Montgomery County. That is why we have asked Mackenzie here today to help us understand what charter schools are and the obstacles. One of them being the opposition, one of them being the teachers union, and how we can get more charter schools in Maryland. Mackenzie is a former public school educator, Teach for America alumni, an education policy expert. She has a Bachelor's of Administration's degree from Purdue University in elementary education, an MA from the George Washington University in political management, and an MBA certificate from Michigan State University in strategic business. Mackenzie has worked for the past 10 years in education policy and advocacy for charter schools, political campaigns, leadership for educational equity, Association of American Educators, and the Office of Maryland State Senate President Ferguson. Mackenzie, we look forward to hearing what you have to say today.
Great. Thank you so much for that nice introduction, and thank you for having me tonight. I'm excited to share a little bit about charter schools. They are definitely my passion. As a former educator, I was a public school kid, but I definitely have only taught in public charter schools. So I started off really being passionate about it as soon as I began my professional career, and it has not left me since. So I made my way to Maryland, and as I'm sure many of you know, Maryland is touted as having the worst charter school law in the country, and we'll come back to that in a minute. But Maryland currently has around 46 charter schools. They are only in 6 of the 24 districts. And of those 46 charter schools, around 30 of them are in Baltimore City, so it's really a heavy conglomerate there. Back to the charter school law. So Maryland is touted as having the worst charter school law in the country. To some, and some think it's the best. I think the NEA reported that Maryland has the best charter school law in the country. So some think it's the best and some think it's the worst. Our charter school law is challenging because it is completely different than any national narrative that you hear about charter schools. Our charter schools are public district schools. We do not have a statewide authorizer. We only have a district authorizer. That means the district determines whether or not the school exists. And also our districts determine commensurate charter school funding. We do not have a charter school funding formula that is law. We just have some verdicts from some lawsuits that exist that put parameters around the district's responsibility to provide commensurate funding. All of our schools are subject to the union negotiated contract that the teachers have with the district. Per the Supreme Court Janus decision a few years ago, members or teachers do not have to be members of the teachers union to still benefit from the contract. However, the school must honor that contract and pay. Some of our schools do have individual negotiated contracts that allow for like extended school year, extended school day, depending on the school model. But those are very rare. Our charter schools provide anything from a classical education to a Montessori education to an environmentalist education to language immersion. I mean, if you can dream it, there's probably a charter school for it. And even though Maryland only has 46, they are all incredibly unique and diverse. We have urban charter schools and we also have rural charter schools. And according to a Credo study that was released in 2018 on Maryland charter schools currently outpace their traditional counterparts by a significant amount. So they did a twin analysis, which means they look at one student in a charter school and that identical student in a traditional school. And according to the findings, one student in 180 school days was getting an additional month and in reading and an additional month and a half in math, just in the same time frame as the traditional counterpart. So they're actually learning more in the same amount of time. And that actually grew, those numbers grew significantly when you looked at different racial demographics. I think the highest statistic was a Latinx student gained an additional 75 days in math in a charter school versus a traditional school. So not only do we have the worst charter school laws, but I think we actually have some of the highest quality charter schools that exist. So that is a really great feather in our cap. My organization, the Maryland Alliance of Public Charter Schools, is a charter support association. We are a membership organization, and our charter operators do pay a small dues fee to be members of our organization. And we focus primarily on advocacy work. So we advocate at the district level for fair funding, for fair renewal authorization practices, and anything you can dream of. I'm always talking to the districts. We also do a lot of state level advocacy. I'm sure you know today was the last day of the session, and so it's been a crazy one this year. We've been really busy behind the scenes. We might not always have charter school legislation passing through with, blatantly charter school, but we do a lot of defensive work to protect autonomy of charter schools. So when laws are passed, it's not a blanket application to all public schools because, as you know, charter schools have the freedom to make decisions on their own in many circumstances, but not all. And then also we do a little bit of federal work, and I actually have a small call to action that I would love everyone to take part in. And currently, the Charter School Program Grant, which is a federal grant program, that gives hundreds of millions of dollars to charter schools across the country, is at risk. So in the previous administration, the program was cut $40 million. And in the current administration, they're looking at closing the program altogether. Why is this important to Maryland? Maryland is currently a beneficiary of this contract. MSDE manages the CSP grant for Maryland. Over $24 million have been awarded to charter schools just in the last 2.5 years. The Maryland Alliance of Public Charter Schools provides the technical assistance portion of this, and that means that we're helping charter schools exist and grow and replicate and enhance their services. So while there might not be a charter school in Montgomery County right now, through our programming and through the Charter Schools Program Grant, you can get 100% free support to build your charter school application and submit that application to see if the public board will vote yes and allow your school to open. So it is 100% free support through our program, and you can check out our website. We actually have, it's a 4-part series, And we're running it again this month. The very first one is April 22nd at 5 p.m. You can sign up on our website, which is mdcharters.org. But my call to action is to ask all of you to fill out this link that I'm going to put in the chat. Hopefully it goes to everyone. I'm going to test that out. Click on that link, fill out your information, and then it will automatically populate an email to your federally elected individuals. It'll send an email to them asking them to vote to save the CSP program. Without the CSP program, the charter school sector will just continue to slowly wilt and die instead of continuing to flourish and give options to kids and families. So please, please, please help. We still have about 2 more years left in Maryland on that grant, but in 2 years, we wanted to be able to reapply. If it doesn't exist, we're going to lose out on millions of dollars for Maryland's public school sector. Thanks.
Well, thank you, Mackenzie. We will make sure that everyone has your information and also the information about the call to action. Jamie, would you unmute yourself and see whether or not we've got a question?
Yes, we do have one question for Mackenzie, and it's what makes a charter school successful? Is it the leadership? Is it the students themselves? Is it the community? Is it the parents, the funding, or is it all of them combined?
That is a really good question. What makes it successful? I would say it's all of it combined, but really the backbone of a good charter school, it definitely has these components. It has a really strong board that really ensures the financial stability of the organization. It has an operator, which is the nonprofit that manages the charter, that really keeps the forefront of the charter and success of students like right in front of them all of the time. So that operator is really steering the ship. So a good executive director, a good strong board, a good executive director. And one thing I love about our charter schools is they are not just a school. It's not just a place where kids come and learn. They are a hub of the community. And so many of our parents and families and even volunteers in the community who don't have children, our schools really serve as a place, a resource for families and communities to come together and work together. And so really that community support is huge. And you know, if you are also interested in the application process, you have to have letters from your community to support the school. You have to have the proof to show your 501c3 is strong and you can provide fidelity to charter. And you have that strong board that's ready to go and be an active working board. So I would say all of the above.
Thank you. Thank you, Mackenzie. We'll get back to a few more questions a little bit later, but right now I'd like to bring Laurie into the discussion. Laurie Halverson was a PTA leader at the local and county level from 2007 to 2013. A former candidate for the Montgomery County Public School Board of Elections, Board of Education in 2014. Governor Hogan appointed her as a commissioner to study testing in Maryland public schools, then appointed her to the Maryland Board of Education in 2016, where she served for 1 year. Laurie was a candidate for Maryland delegate in 2018. She currently serves on the Montgomery County Board of License Commissioners and is a regular political panelist on Montgomery Community Media's 21 This Week show. Laurie, can you give us your thoughts? You're muted.
Thank you. Sorry about that. Well, I am going to be talking today about the Boost program, which is different than the charter schools, but it is another option that parents have in our state. Boost stands for Broadening Options and Opportunities for Students Today. I always forget what it stands for, so I had to write it down to remember. But it's I'm going to explain to you today, what is it? Why do we need it? How much does it cost? And why is it that there are people resistant to this program? First of all, what is it? The Boost program is essentially a voucher program, And it's a Maryland program, and it's for low-income families. The average salary of the family that receives an award for the Boost program makes about $33,000 a year. And the reason that what this Boost does is it provides them funds so that they can choose a private school as an option. Parents can apply to get this funding, and an advisory board goes through all the application and decides who gets the award. There were 5,492 applications in 2019 and 2020 for that school year. And out of those, only 3,071 awards were given. So there is definitely a demand for more of these of this Boost funding. And unfortunately, it's based on needs first basis. So the advisory board looks first at the need, and then they give awards based on that. And they also want to have preference to people who are going from public school to private school. The funds are also for parents, for families who already have a student in private school, and funding is given for if they want to continue going to that private school. And let's see, there are different levels of financial need, and the most financial need you can get, or the most financial award you can get, is $4,400, and that's if you go from a public to a private. If a child goes from public to private school, and you have to be eligible for the free meal program to get that award. And then the lowest amount you can be awarded is $1,000. And that's if a child goes from private school to private school and the family is eligible for reduced meals, for the reduced meals program. So it ranges, there's different ranges of the awards based on the amount of need that a family has. Cato, the Cato Institute, they list Maryland as 46th in the Cato Index for Freedom in our 50 states, which means that we're really at the bottom of the heap when it comes to a choice in for families for their schools. And we were the worst in the nation, but what brought us to 46th in the nation, whoa, that's really exciting to be 46th, is that is the Boost program. The Boost program helped raise our status in that. So the next I'm going to talk about is, why do we need the program? Well, because families need more options. We definitely see that we have schools in Maryland, and especially Baltimore City, but even in Montgomery County, some schools are not as good as the other schools. So it's good to have an option for other parents. And the public schools provide really a one-size-fits-all kind of thing for a student. So, not every child will do well in those kinds of schools. So a private school may offer a different option for a parent. And by getting the Boost funding, it helps them be able to afford that school. So the next thing is, how much does it cost? Well, as we all probably know, that the Maryland legislature has voted to continue with the Kerwin funding, which is a massive amount of spending for our public school system. It's like $42 billion in additional spending. That is, that costs us as taxpayers. However, the Boost program, it saves the state money. From 2016 to 2019, Maryland netted almost $6 million in budgetary savings. Even though they awarded $7,700,244. I'm sorry, I didn't say it right. $7,700,244 was awarded in 2019. Legislation governs how that funding is given every year. This year, Governor Hogan was trying to increase the spending, the award amount, from the $7,700,000 to $10 million, because it's such a successful program. However, in the last minute, our legislature voted to lower that amount. So we're pretty much back to where we were before. It's $6,656,151 is the current amount that's in the House Bill 588, which just I think last Friday is when they passed it. This is really, really very unfortunate that that's happened. And even though we have a demand for these boost program, we're not going to be able to meet the demand. The next thing I'm going to talk about is why is there so much resistance to the boost funding, even though it saves money? Well, for one thing, the main reason I think is because the teachers union is opposed to it. So I'm going to debunk some of the things that they say. They say that, for example, that it hurts public schools because money goes away from public schools and goes to the kids who go to private schools. Well, if you look at the, it actually helps save money, because when a child goes from a public school to a private school, the costs go with them to that private school. For every child that transfers from public to private school, Maryland's education expenses fell $10,263. So I think the reason why the teachers union does not like it is because the fewer teachers, I guess, will be needed. But at the same time, it helps with our tax funds because fewer of our tax dollars are going towards public schools. They also say that it does not provide equity, that more money goes to white families than Black and Latino families. Well, if you look at what the funds that were given in the past for Maryland, more funds actually help Black families than white families, even though white families are a percentage much larger to the population. So it actually helps minority families more than it helps white families. And they also say that it doesn't help the poor people, it helps rich people. Well, maybe in some other states that might be the case because the other voucher programs might be eligible for anybody. But in Maryland, it's only eligible for farms eligible families. So you have to be pretty low income to receive boost funding. So it actually helps low income, not the high income parents. So there is really it just does not make sense why the boost program does not keep increasing. Cato, the Cato Institute recommends that there should be a gradual increase of about 3,200 more vouchers per year so that we can at least match some of the other states in the United States. So, that didn't happen this year, didn't happen last year. Unfortunately, it's something that if we want it, we're going to have to make our legislators know about it. And this year has gone now, since today is the last day of the session. So this is something I think that we should be working on as Republicans, and really all parents, no matter what their political affiliation, should be for this program. In fact, this program started with Democrats from Baltimore. They are the legislators from Baltimore City are the ones that started that proposed this legislation in the first place. So it's a really good program, and I'm going to put some things in the chat box so that you can have some information here. See if it works. Oops. Somehow that didn't work. I'm going to try it again. Let's see. Oops. Chat.
By the time we stop using Zoom, we'll be perfect at it.
Well, it's not working for some reason. Can you see it by any chance? I did a cut and paste.
We'll make sure that everybody gets it at the end.
Oh, I do. It should be there. Well, oh wait, maybe I need to press. I see it from my end, but it didn't appear. Is there like a send button I'm supposed to press? One
Okay,
second.
we'll check into it and make sure.
Okay, but I want to highlight, this is from the Cato Institute. They did a really good summary of the Maryland's program, and you can get it online. I was going to give you, a link to that, because it's everything I told you today, there's that and even more information about the program. So this was an excellent source of information. And you can also apply if you know anyone who is eligible to apply. April 30th is the last day you can apply for the next school year's program. So and you can go to the MS or Maryland State Education Department and apply through that website. So.
Well, thank you, Laurie. That's
Okay.
very good. I must say I hate the term private schools because they're simply not taxpayer supported schools. You know, and then I think the money should go to the students, to the parents, to give their students a good education. Jamie, do we have any further questions now for Laurie?
I actually have a question. So you said that, forgive me, I don't know the correct numbers, but you said that the budget at least started at 7 million, and then Hogan raised it to 10 million, but then it got decreased by the legislature. Is that a legislature decision, or was that like factored in because the pandemic and other things that affected that, or was that just no, we're going to cut it because we have control and we want to cut it kind of thing?
Yeah, I didn't hear the discussion on why it was lowered back to pretty much what it was last year. So I don't know, but it is a legislative thing, and it's House Bill 588. And you can actually read the entire, it starts on page 137 of that long bill. And there are some other things of concern, and I wasn't sure. The program is supposed to be for K through 12, and it looks like they might have changed it to be 1 through 12, but I'm not sure about that. That it looks like they changed the wording, so I have some questions about that. There also did a lot of other things about, there's information in the new bill that they've changed to make sure that they're not discriminating in any way against LGBTQ and all that, and sexual orientation. All that stuff is added in, and I'm not sure if that will end up affecting the religious institutions that are, the religious private groups. I don't think so, but it is something to look at the wording, because some of that information might really make a big difference in the program.
Thank you, Laurie. It's very good. Let me involve Ed in the discussion now. Ed Amatetti is a good friend. He's a former teacher and has been involved in education reform for the better part of 3 decades. He founded New Renaissance in Education, a 501c3 that established local chapters to advocate for education reform legislation at the state level in support of schools' choice, charters, vouchers, and other education alternatives, and for giving parents and citizens the right to review K through 12 curriculum and textbooks before they are approved. How about that? While executive director of NRIE, Ed visited dozens of charter schools throughout the United States and assisted others to get started. Ed is a former candidate for Montgomery County Board of Education in 2014 and the County Council in 2018. He is currently president of Montgomery County Taxpayers League. Ed, with that great background, I'd love to hear your perspective on education.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you all for, we can't see you, but thank you all for joining us. It's wonderful to have everybody here. I want to talk not too long. I hope a lot more questions come in and things like this. So we're talking about what you want to hear. I do want to say something that every once in a while people talk about. We're 46th or out of 50, and why, I don't know why unions are against it and all that. unions are against it, and Democrats have trouble getting behind it because it is anathema to the progressive movement. It takes power away from, it takes power away from public institutions, and it can cause trouble. If you're trying to get 1619 curriculum into 2,900 districts, it'd be nice if you didn't have charter schools to deal with that might fight it and such. So it's a big deal, and we're talking at the level of we want to help children who need a better education, which is so good of us. But it's now taken a political. It has a very high political stand in this, in the sense that it is a battle for the hearts and minds of America going forward. And control the education has been key to the progressive movement thus far, and they want to keep it that way. And so that's how it works. In Baltimore, they have 30 of the charter schools because the schools are such a wreck that it reaches a point where something has to give. And they start allowing trickling in of charters and such. So I did want to bring that up because it's a serious battle, and it gets very political very quickly. And the policy merits start shrinking in some states, a lot less in other states. And that said, I guess three things I wanted to talk about, especially two, is what the Taxpayers League has been doing in education in Montgomery County and where that stands right now. I do want to talk a little bit about the many advantages of charter schools that we're discussing as a Taxpayers League. And then I want a little bit about how really good charter schools are. They're better than any of the advocates can even say at times, because they produce miracles on so many levels that you shake your head and you say, it's kind of like when Abraham Lincoln said, what is grant drinking? We got to get that alcohol to the rest of our generals. That's how good it does. So we'll talk about that. The Montgomery County Taxpayers League has been working really closely with Dr. Smith and his lieutenant, Dr. Johnson, for years. We culminated what we had done in producing a 17-page education reform paper that had 44 recommendations. The charter schools, the vouchers, and the P-TECs, and you guys can ask me later if you want to know what those are. And education alternatives was only one recommendation, but it was by far the longest. So it was a page and a half just on that recommendation. We had in January of last year, 2020, a meeting with Dr. Johnson and the new Superintendent McKnight. She wasn't yet. And they agreed to have meetings every month and a half, strategy meetings. And then came COVID, then came trying to get kids back to school, and all of that was put on hold. I nudged a little, but it was just too much. And so things went on hold, and we're very excited about it because we had a lot of recommendations. We've had to get great rapport. We were also working very closely with the Black and Brown Coalition, the NAACP Parents Council, and Black pastors in Montgomery County. And we were getting closer and closer to them. Then kind of came the cultural revolution of 2020. We had Black Lives Matter. We had elections that were very cantankerous, and we had a lot of stuff that went on. And I believe very much in timing is everything. So a lot of those things have been put on hold. And to tell you the truth, the last time I met with the president of the NAACP Parents Council, he wanted to lecture me about 1619, not about any of the other things. So it wasn't a bad meeting. I just listened, but I realized I need to take a step back while they organize and we get out of this where we are right now. So that said, we do have the report. I can, of course, send it to anybody who wants it. with regard to the arguments for charter schools, my goodness, in the area of student performance, I'm going to get into some stats a little later, and we already did, but they are finding that they promote neighborhood and school diversity, because instead of white flight and rich flight out of neighborhoods, you actually have people staying put when there are charter schools and school choice, or even white flight into those neighborhoods. They meet every kind of minority need. I'm sure Mackenzie Allen, you know something about the school in Arizona that gets all of the Native Americans, because they're just miracle workers with that group that has often 11% proficiency, and they're up to like 70 in 2 years when they opened. When I talked to Dr. Smith, we talking about leveraging the achievement gap efforts he was doing. He really was a hardworking superintendent, and it's just hard to move the needle on the achievement gap until you have school choice. Then miraculously it starts happening. It addressed overcrowding. We right now have enrollment greatly exceeding each year our ability to build space out for schools. That became less of a problem with COVID, but we've been way behind 14 of the last 16 years. Charter schools can just, if they're approved, they go get a facility, they finance it, it all happens without all the battling. Should Damascus get new water fountains, or should Poolsville get a new gym? They don't have to worry about that. They build them fast and they build them cost effective. Really good on special type of schools, and Mackenzie did a great job of explaining them. Vocational schools, all kinds of things come out of it. They provide operational cost savings, because right now they're funded at 70 cents on the dollar in Maryland, and they're funded at less than $1 in almost every state. They just can do it. And they have lots of ways they do it, whether it's parent volunteering and things like that, but the kids do incredibly well even through all that. And of course, they bring more innovation and diversity in instructional strategies than all of us can talk about before midnight came around. And it's wonderful. In Montgomery County, which I couldn't bring up with Dr. Smith, it provides a chance to eliminate some real counterproductive stuff that goes on in our schools, such as you get a 50% for putting your name on the paper for exams, the emphasis on weekly assessments that you can retake, so kids no longer bother studying. They just take it, they don't do bad, but now they know the answer to the question, they know what the questions are, and they do well the second time. So the retake, the elimination of final exams, and I can go on and on. And so all that, except for that last batch, we were in conversation with Dr. Smith. Hopefully that can start with Dr. McKnight and others over there. The second thing I want, just a real quick thing on just how good are charter schools. And I'm going to talk about two of my favorites. One is Citizens Academy in Cleveland, which was put together by a bunch of parents who really didn't quite know what they were doing, but they cared a lot. And the first couple of years, they were a little disappointed in how they were doing, but they tweaked. And because they could do anything they wanted, they could have Saturday morning class, after school class, everything under the sun. This school, by the way, was 100% African-American in the middle of Cleveland. And in the 11th year, they became the #1 proficiency school in Ohio in the entire state. Not proficiency for Black students. They now had 100% African-American school out competing every other school in the entire state. The second one is Success Academy in New York. They have 46 schools. They go to the worst places in Brooklyn and in Manhattan you can imagine. They have 16,000 students, 85% about a minority. They're reaching 95% math proficiency and 84% English proficiency. It takes a little time, but the kids go 2 grades up every year until they're reaching that. That's higher than Richard Montgomery and everything, black, white, green, orange, Martian, or otherwise. In central Harlem, where they have some of these schools that have already reached these proficiencies, the equivalent at the district schools is 24% and 29% for math and for English. And I do want to say, right here in Maryland, we have a lot of great schools, and I'm just going to bring up Chesapeake Science Point Academy and all their schools because they keep sending me data. But their African Americans are at 87% reading proficiency and 90% math, and their counterparts are at 30 and high 20s in the district schools. And DC, of course, you know their success. Every 3 years, the NEAP, National Association of Education Progress, puts DC among the 5 doing the best in improving scores. And what is it, Mackenzie, like 53% now go to charter schools? So they're a charter school majority area. I did want to say, and then I'll shut up. On strategies in Maryland, we have a mountain to climb that is not even Mount Everest. It's the other one, K2 or whatever, the K1, the bigger one in the Himalayas. And Democrats aren't going to support it until their careers depend upon it. Baltimore will continue to lead the way because the kids are failing so badly that they have to turn. And that's a good thing. That's not necessarily good for Montgomery County. And Mackenzie, please speak to this because if I was an expert, I would have had more success in bringing charter schools to fruition. But I think it's going to have to be in Montgomery County a bottoms-up approach. Enough angry parents, enough of them Democrats, enough of them African American, Hispanic, and everybody. Just a monster coalition, and it's got to be a lot in numbers. So we've got to have a really aggressive website so that if somebody who's running this organization says, you know, we could use 2,700 people surrounding the Board of Education meeting on Friday, they can do it. And that the signs can be printed up by other people who are supporting it. And then maybe something great. We have great locations. The first one should go right in Montgomery Village. And it would be extraordinary what gains can be gotten from putting it in that old little building that used to be a medical center and is now taped up windows. And so I'm going to stop there and hopefully we can get some really good questions.
Thank you. I'd appreciate that. Mackenzie, did you want to respond to his question? You're muted.
Yes,
Yeah.
so I can comment on this, and Ed and I talked a little bit about this before. So I agree that I think, so there's been a lot of questions in the chat too, and I've tried to keep up with the Q&A questions. And a lot of them are like, how do we get a charter school in Montgomery County? And absolutely, it has to be, so one thing that, you know, in this charter space and my Teach for America work and my work with educators, all of that, the power resides in the people, in the parents. You know, parents vote with their feet. People move. Every school is a choice school, whether people want to admit it or not. You move to a region to go to a school, whether it's a traditional public school or not, that's a choice school. You made a choice to send your kid there. And so I'm a firm believer that every school is a choice school, and parents vote with their feet. They move. They want to go places where there are good programming, and school boards need to take note that if there are parents who are the people who are going to elect you, if those people are angry and want something different and you're not providing your constituents with what they want, you're not going to have that seat anymore. So I really think like that's where you have to harness your power and as constituents push that on the elected officials, on the school board. The power resides in the school board, not the state, not anyone else. The power resides in the school board, and you need to get enough votes to vote yes, regardless of what Montgomery County employees of the district say, we recommend this, we recommend that. The board is the final vote. That is who matters. So absolutely.
That's good. Those are good comments. I was a realtor for 30 years, so I know what people's questions are about when they're out searching for homes, and the school district is probably at the top of the list. Jamie, do you have any more questions?
I have a general one for Mackenzie. So you were saying, the constituents have to get involved, and you have to contact your school board. If you're a parent and you're just like, well, how do I do that? Like, what's the first step of, I want things to change, but I don't know what to do to make the change happen.
Yes. So if you're a parent and you want a charter school, my best suggestion would be to attend one of our sessions. And I'm not just saying that to say, come join MAPS and see what we're all about. Really, our information sessions they're completely free. And it is a walk through, you come with no knowledge, and you can learn all about everything you need to write a charter school application. Everything from English as a second language learners to special education learners to what you need in the building to make it compliant, everything, how to select good curriculum. We bring in experts. We have things that are taped. We talk about board governance and who you need on your board. So even if you're just one parent who thinks you have an idea, I say go to our first training or go to any of our trainings. They're all listed on our website. Register, attend, get some information, start talking to other parents, sort of build this group. We call them founding groups. And, get some experts in there. Maybe there's a teacher. Maybe there's a principal. Maybe there's someone who's a retired school board member. Find some people who have some knowledge in education that are on your founding group that can help speak to the expertise. Maybe you also want to have a realtor, because it would be beneficial to have that person to talk about space and those sorts of things, and then and go from there. So really do the work yourself. Think about what kind of charter school you want to have too, because that's really important, what you want your focus to be, and then start building this team. We call it founding group. Build this founding group and start moving forward on your application. It is not a fast process. Usually takes people about a year to get all of that together. Because we might lose the CSP, my suggestion is start now. Do not wait. Do not say, oh, I'm just one parent, I don't know what to do. Start now, because that money is potentially going to be gone. So start now, because everything's free. Learn what you need to learn and move on it.
Mm-hmm. Jamie?
Ed, you're muted.
Can I give a follow-up question?
Yes.
Mackenzie, do you know much about what happened in Los Angeles? I just remembered reading in the Wall Street Journal about 5 years ago, and I had such a good day, I went out and celebrated, that they overturned enough of the Board of Education, and it was led by Black mothers. That simple. It was like the French Revolution started when a bunch of farmers' wives stormed the Bastille. And they overturned the whole thing, and they got charter schools and things like that getting started. School choice was the thing. And 4 years later, of course, I'm guessing George Soros money or something, they overturned the whole board again. So it's gone backwards. But it's just so exciting that it happened there. And their teachers union is so powerful. What happened, and can we learn from that? Can we find somebody who say, yeah, let me tell you what we did point by point, and this is what you have to do?
Yeah, so I don't know about that specific situation. However, I'm almost 100% sure the California Charter School Association, which is the Maryland component in California, they're much larger. We only have 2.5 staff members. They have 35 staff members and millions of dollars. But they do really great work, and they're incredibly equity focused. And especially in LA, they talk a lot about education as a civil right, right? Like, it is everybody's right to a free, fair public education. And it's the same in Baltimore City, right? Like, if you're not getting it, you need to fight for something different. And so that's sort of that movement. I will say the moratorium on charter schools in California recently was a big ordeal, and the overturning that in LA was massive. What's different in Maryland, in my opinion, from my work, is our biggest fight is surprisingly not with the union, because the union's membership, that's our teachers, right? Like, our teachers are members of the union. Sure, we bump heads. There are times when we don't get along, absolutely. But our biggest opponent in this work are the districts, are the school boards, and are the districts. They do not want charter schools. They don't want them because it's almost like an admission of not providing something, and they're seen as wrong, right? Like, a charter school is supposed to provide something new and different that doesn't currently exist in the district. And a lot of our districts say things like, well, we offer all of this. We have all of these things. We do offer all of these things. We don't need charter schools. We're doing fine already. And that's just not simply true, because it's less about like admitting you're wrong and seeing a different side of how kids learn, right? There is no right way to teach. There is no right curriculum. You know, a whole school district, Montgomery County is one of the largest in the nation. Not all of those kids are going to be successful at the same curriculum. I can guarantee you that. So really expanding that thought process is the hardest part for Maryland, people wanting to start charters in Maryland.
Can I add something?
Yes.
I just want to say, sometimes I think parents don't really know if their school is good or not. They think it's good because their kid comes home happy or whatever, but sometimes they're lacking information about their schools. So you can go to Maryland Report Card and look up your own school online and see how the students performed in math and in English, at least those two subjects, which gives you a good idea of how good your school is. It doesn't necessarily paint the entire picture of your school, but you can see. I mean, I'm not going to say what school, but there is one high school in our county where 11.5% of Hispanics are proficient in math. Only 11.5%. That's really, really bad. I mean, there are other schools where 65.4% of the Latino students are proficient in math. So there are very big differences from one school to another in our county. You can't just lump us all together and say we're a great school system. When you look at each school, in each school cluster, they're different. And you may have one bad elementary school in one whole cluster. I mean, look at your school, and if you're looking for a new home, a lot of people are trying to buy a new home right now. You really should do your homework and check your home high school for that, where you're going to buy a house, and just see how that school performs. And if you want to live there, then you might want to consider trying other options. I mean, it would be good to have a charter school in some of these areas to provide some competition for the schools that are performing badly. I think if they wake up and see, hey, there's another school that's in our area that is doing really well, then maybe they'll work harder and of trying to get students proficient.
Jamie, we've got two former school board candidates here, and I think you had a question about how do you make some inroads into the Board of Education? You're muted.
You're muted.
Sorry. One of the questions was, how do we change the board when it seems like there's no place to complain and they don't listen? And this kind of goes off of what Mackenzie was saying about how the district is our enemy and the school board's our enemy when they don't want to, listen to the constituents and the parents of the kids who are in their schools.
I would say he didn't win, but look at what Steve Austin did. Steve Austin was a candidate in the last run, and he started a Facebook page because people were upset about possible busing in our schools. And he just started a Facebook page, and then very quickly 5,000 people joined the page. And then he ran for Board of Ed. He got a lot of scrutiny from some people. One of them was a former Board of Ed member, and he lost. But if he ran again, I think he would get more votes, and a third time he might win. So sometimes it takes 3 times to run to win a race. Ed and I both ran for office. I ran against a 16-year incumbent, Pat O'Neill, who's still there. And it's hard for a Republican to run. I'm not saying it's impossible, but I think when you have social media behind you now, you can start a Facebook group, you could start a charter school Facebook group for Montgomery County, and it would get a lot of people interested in that charter school Facebook page. And then maybe, someone will emerge from there to run. Charter schools are public schools, so I think they fall somewhat under the Board of Ed in some way. It's kind of a different way, but it's important to have a variety of views on the Board of Education. Right now, we have all Democrats it's a nonpartisan job, but they're all Democrats, and they all seem to be against charter schools. So, but it takes a lot of, I'm sure Ed and I would be happy to help anyone who's interested in running for Board of Ed. We need good candidates. You don't have to be a Republican. I would support anyone with differing views who would provide a little spice to what's currently there on the board.
Ed?
I guess one thing I would add is to overcome some obstacles in running for Board of Ed, you have to have a strong education background. And so, for example, and I completely can't remember, it's not even on the tip of my tongue, but the one of the ones who won for the first time this year, if you looked at a resume and you crossed out anything political about the person, she would have been a fantastic candidate. I think she won't go with school choice because I don't think she would be a school choice advocate, but just in general, her background, her education, her to teacher and PhD in this and that, and you end up with a good candidate. So it'd be nice to have a candidate that is so good that the Washington Post has to take them into consideration. And that person can just sound as normal as he needs to be, or he or she needs to be to the Post, and then just say, but I will be, I'm in favor of school choice, and be a little bit different than say, I'm going to fight all the way to the end, because I don't know where the Washington Post is anymore. I know they were once school choice advocates, but I don't know. But it'd be nice if you had less of a Republican background and more of I've been a teacher and I have an administrator certificate and things like that.
Yeah, I must say that we're the Republican Party here, and I'm wondering whether or not, DC has charter schools, and I know it sticks in the craw of so many Democrats in the Congress. Is there any chance that the Congress will get rid of the charter schools in DC?
Oh, no.
No?
It is thank you, Fente and Michelle Rhee. That thing is a fixture. If it does, we would probably be having some of the BOE murdered or something. And now, the parents are so tickled pink, and they've done such a great job. The state authorization board does such a great job of promoting it and organizing so people know how they can apply and where they can apply. And it's just wonderfully done. Don't you think, Mackenzie?
Absolutely. We actually look to them to see if we can apply some of those. There's the CSA there as well that we work closely with, and they actually have a really great parent voice program, and we're trying to build that in Maryland as well. And so we are always looking to them to try to steal ideas, they're an exemplar across the country of good charter practice.
And I know Hogan's bill pretty much was based on the DC version. the public charter school authorization bill, whatever it was called, I've forgotten. You know what I'm talking about?
I think we've got time for one more question. Jamie, do you have anything?
I think most of them have been answered. Actually, Mackenzie has been great at responding in the Q&A chat box. So make sure before this session ends, take a look in there. Maybe if you had a question, but you didn't feel like answering it or asking it, maybe one of your questions is in there.
Okay, well, thank you. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for your thoughtful comments. It's given us so much to think about, to act on, as we continue to struggle through such an impactful and important thing, education, not only for our community, but for so many across this country. Mackenzie, Laurie, and Ed, we'll make sure that everyone has all of your information, your contact information, and if there's anything else you want me to send out to them, just email it to me and we'll make sure they get it. Folks, please make sure that you continue to stay in touch with your local Republican Party. We need to hear from you. We intend to keep reaching out to you for help, support, guidance, and fresh ideas. You can always email us at newsletter@mcgop.com. That's newsletter@mcgop.com. Look for the announcements of the May Mondays with MoCo. It's a fascinating discussion about the real anti-Asian hate directed at them by some education institutions, colleges, high schools, and even elementary in the far left environs of this great nation. I want to thank Jamie Greedon and Paul Agel for helping out. That's all from here. I am Dennis Melby. Have a good night. We'll see you next month.